Hello to our amazing listeners of today. My name is Fido Como and the co-host of the Green Perspective podcast. And today we welcome you to the exciting world of the green perspectives, where we bring you and delve deeper into the ever expanding world of sustainability. This is a podcast where every action and perspective counts. And whether you're a seasoned eco warrior or just starting your green journey, our podcast has something for everyone. And if you're passionate about the environment, sustainability, and want to continuously stay informed about the latest green innovations, then this podcast is definitely for you.
Well, thank you so much, Frida, for the wonderful introduction of that. My name is Cedric Molulu, and I'm the co-host as well in this wonderful and amazing episode. And it's so lovely to be here again in this green perspective conversation.
In today's episode, we are having the pleasure of speaking with one of the guests who I'm going to introduce shortly. And we are going to explore their journey, their project goals, their inspiring success stories, and highlight a youth led innovation on clean energy alternatives. And we call on to you to stay tuned as we embark on this insightful conversation. And we're going to shed light on the important role that young people play in combating climate change and leading green innovations within their communities. And I'm going to introduce today our guest, Osea Tumwine, who is a youth champion from Uganda. Osea is a global youth champion at VSO and the current Western Regional Youth Coordinator under the National Youth Engagement Network. He has served as a national volunteer under the Challenge Fund for Youth Employment, a national youth advisory member at the Sexual Reproductive Health Rights Alliance Uganda, representing Restless Development from 2019 to 2021. He was an international citizen service volunteer at VSO Uganda, a peer educator at Restless Development under the Get Up Speak Out program. And a brief about Osea joining VSO. He joined the VSO under the ICS program, that is the International Citizen Service Program, in 2019. And Osea has conducted various research and advocacy on climate action and has been on the forefront in working with and for young people to tackle some of the greatest challenges within his communities. And some of them he's going to share with us in this podcast. So stay tuned and let's get into it. Over to you, Cedric.
Thank you so much, Frida. Hosea, that's really a wonderful introduction. And would you please give us a bit about journey as a youth champion, specifically as a climate youth champion?
Yes. Good afternoon, morning to our viewers in your respective countries. Here it's just a good evening. Yes, my name is Osea Tumwine, and I hail from Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. And I also come from the land of milk and honey, the Ankole region. Yes, Osea is a proud volunteer, but also a champion for climate change. My journey for this particular element that we are all talking today and that is on the minds of every person in the world, climate, started in 2018. Like I've been sharing in many of my interviews and blogs, my mother's own story challenges me every day to be a champion for climate change. So my mother is a single mother who gave birth to me when she was a teenager. Like here in Africa, when you give birth at that age, it's a disaster. So she had no home. And to cut the story short, I came to see her again in 2018 when I was just graduating from university. So there are many issues, and one of them is just productive health. Like my mother, who is not into decent employment, who has no salary, who has no wage, who has no hope for money but she has to eat every day, climate change becomes disastrous for her. And I know there are other women who entirely depend on agriculture to ensure that their children are able to go to school and graduate and find employment in the future. There are many Ugandans who still depend on firewood for survival. But the current pressure that comes with our population growth rate is alarming. Today, we are now 45 million people. And 10 years from today, the projection is 62 million people. So with this population, many things have to change. Our mothers, much as they didn't go to school, their ways of living must change. Our young people who are in boarding schools and who are in day schools, and they have been working, looking for firewood, that has to change. So this is why I'm here, and this is what I do, to ensure that every child stays in school. They are not getting pregnant while they are young, but again, they are not raped while they are looking for firewood 10 kilometers away from home. That our mothers are no longer looking at the sky to know when it's going to rain for them to grow crops, because that one is no longer working with the changes in weather patterns. Here we used to have 2 seasons, but we have now 7 seasons. So it's hard to tell when should you grow, when do you harvest. So all these circumstances forced me to think as an advocate. So 2021, I started a journey of empowering young women and women in Uganda to discover various ways of cooking, other than depending on charcoal and firewood, other than depending on electricity or hydropower that is far away from their reach. I do briquettes. So these briquettes come from waste. And waste in many local communities is a luxury. Many people have access to it. But they have for a long time, they have not been knowing how to turn this waste into a resource, into an energy for cooking. But 2, the backbone behind this strategy is not just them having an alternative source of cooking energy. No, the awareness of what is happening today, climate change.
Wow, thank you so much, Jose. I think I'm really inspired by the journey, the way you've taken us through your start of inspiration, where you started the journey of. I'm really glad that you have the enterprising mindset, that you really had a passion, you had a place which created the spark out of you, to create a change in your community, and that came about from a personal perspective of what you really aspired and what you really thought that you want the world to look like, or maybe the community to look like later. So it's really good of you, and yeah, I'm really happy about that.
Thank you so much, Cedric. Hosea, your story is inspiring. It from your advocacy work and your awareness creation stemmed from your personal story, your family story. So it's really great to see what influenced your work in climate action. And I know our listeners and also me, we are so interested to know what climate innovation did you come up with? What are the objectives, the aim of the project, and how did you get to implement it within your community?
So I empower youth to create the alternatives to firewood that has been basically the main source of fuel in Uganda. So the primary objective, like I shared with you, number 1 is to ensure that local communities are involved in the decision-making processes regarding environmental change and environmental policies and governance. So what happens here in Uganda, for brief for our listeners, I don't know, I think even in Africa, that decisions regarding environment policies and governance are centralized. So in this way, there is less involvement of the most affected populations in decisions and financing for climate change. And when I talk about the vulnerable communities, these are women and girls that didn't go to school. They are educated, they're informal sector. So my innovation through this strategy of turning waste into cooking energy, I invite in leaders into what I call, we normally do what we call the community scorecard. So in every community, we do a scorecard to assess the level of awareness in these communities. Do you know about climate change? Well, how do you relate to this? Have you ever heard about it? Who is responsible for it in your community? When we get these responses, then we call a meeting. We call this the community scorecard meeting. So in Uganda, in every village, there's supposed to be a local committee that is responsible for environment. But these committees are non-functional because they are not funded. So in this innovation, we bring these 4 categories of leaders: the district, the local council, the committees, and the youth leaders together, and the affected populations to have a discussion on the responses from the scorecard. So from these responses, we get commitments from the leaders, but also commitments from the populations. It's one thing for someone to say, yes, climate change is affecting all of us, so I should change how I have been doing agriculture. That's now the affected population is making a commitment. If I've been using firewood, hey, cutting a tree is dangerous. When I cut a tree, I'll plant another one. Instead of using firewood, I'm going to use briquettes. But also it's another thing for the leader. Say, hey, now agriculture is becoming hard. Are you going to finance irrigation for you to continue sustaining your lives in this scenario of climate change? So leaders are doing a commitment, but the populations are also doing a commitment. And in this process, we are increasing awareness. Most of the content regarding climate change is in English. So this excludes the engagement and the participation of people who didn't go to school in climate change, advocacy, resilience, and adaptability. So my innovation, 1, is increasing awareness through translating the content into the language that is mostly understood. But 2, increasing the level of accountability on matters regarding climate change. We've seen leaders sweat in these scorecard meetings. Money has been sent. We don't know where this money is going. And we are empowering the affected populations to demand for this accountability. With the increased level of corruption in Uganda today, this initiative is really, really necessary. But also 3, in terms of agriculture and livelihood, I have seen, at my last blog, I was sharing how 200 women are now able to sell briquettes and get money. So this is turning away from, it's reducing the high dependence on agriculture. Because it's the high dependence on agriculture that exerts a lot of competition and pressure on the limited land available. And this leads to poor agricultural practices, leading to land degradation. So the briquettes, providing an alternative source of income, is reducing overdependence on agriculture as a source of income. Here in Uganda, 80% of the population depends on agriculture for survival. If we love our country, if we love our people, we need to empower them to find other sources of survival other than agriculture. So this is where I'm heading now. To ensure that the few populations that are depending on agriculture, they are supported with education and extension trainings. Because like I shared with you, these people don't even know English. So someone who didn't go to school, to primary 7, when we make these terms, mechanization of agriculture, they don't understand them. Until me and you go down to that community and speak this in a language they must understand.
Thank you, Osea, for that. And just in line with what you've mentioned, it's so good that you're both tackling climate change and also ensuring that you create employment for women. So that's really commendable what you're doing within your community. And I would like just to know from you, what is that one biggest challenge you're facing or your community is facing in fully embracing alternative sources of clean energy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I shared with you, the attitude is still poor. Because someone asks themselves, why am I now using a briquette instead of firewood? But even selling briquettes to the market is still challenging. Someone sees no reason to buy briquette that compared to firewood, because that's what they have been used to. And me and you know very well that behavior change is a process. I think also the issue of resources becomes very challenging. I trained 200 people because I got a funding from VSO. It was around 2,500. That was the last one. That funding impacted 200 women. They are still training other people, but how I wish that thing was sustainable. So there is unsustainability in funding for climate change awareness, climate change innovations. Donors and funders, I don't know because there's when you're doing a project on reproductive health, there's a lot of money. But projects on climate change, surely the financing is not sustainable. Then 3, like I also shared with you, the level of education is still very low, and I attribute this to the government. Education regarding environment and climate is still very low, and I attribute this to government because due to that poor level of accountability, the exclusion of these communities in decision-making processes and governances, it all brings it all together to level. And this low level of education makes this population think that these resources are available and they take them for granted. What is your child going to survive on? Our grandchildren, I see all of us, most of us here are young. We are eating on the fruits they planted 30 years ago. What have you planted for your children as a young child, as a young person? We shall not wait for our politicians and our leaders to come into our homes and tell us to plant trees. We should be responsible. This one, Farida, you allow me to say it again. Let us be responsible for climate and environment. Your president in your country is responsible for accountability of the money that is allocated to environment. Your responsibility is to ensure that you maintain and preserve that environment because we found it. It's us and our culture and our behaviors that are destroying it. Let's be responsible.
Oh, Osea, I think I'm really motivated by that. And I like the fact that you're emphasizing a lot about responsibility, social responsibility. You've touched a lot about accountability. You've talked about a citizen-led participation. And I'm really proud of you that you're really passionate about sustainability. You spoke about sustainability and instability of some of the practices that are being taken there. And sustainability is quite a big topic that I think everybody's quite interested right now. And I know the green space, especially green innovation, should be one of the biggest contributors to sustainability of our environment. And I think your big motivation as well is to have sustainability in place. And I'm glad that a lot of frameworks and a lot of things that you've spoken about are contributing factors towards a sustainable community. And You spoke before about citizen-led participation. That means you want the voices to come from the people, and you want the people to own the initiatives and to run it from the bottom of their heart, so that they can be able to have systems that are meeting the current need without compromising the needs of the future generation to achieve their own. So I'm just curious about some of the sustainable practices. I know young people are really passionate. You yourself are really passionate about sustainability. And what do you think, or how can young people and communities advocate for alternative clean energy, charcoal, how is this contributing to food security measures?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mululu. So one of the biggest sustainable strategy that I use and that I've been relying on is peer-to-peer training. So with the peer-to-peer training, it means that this woman who is 35, I have trained her to go and train another person. This young girl of 20 years that I've told to plant a tree, he or she is going to also go and train another person of that age to do the same thing. So peer-to-peer training is a sustainable way. But also to having community innovative hubs is very, very important. So the community innovative hubs, what do I mean? See, the problem we have as the advocates and the volunteers, we know a lot of English. And we want to confuse populations. So you find an innovation hub is in the center of the city, where we all know that in the evening, it's only 1% of the population that stays in the city. The 99% goes back to where? To the village to sleep. So where do they cook from? They cook from home in the village. So that means we need to transfer all our innovations to the grassroots. I'm going to challenge you, all of us here, to go in our villages and count how many innovation hubs we have at our local council one. You rarely find one. But what am I doing? For example, in the last fund that I got from VSO, there is a woman, there are two ladies that I trained in Mbarara district. And still their homes are still welcoming other women for trainings. At the local level, local level. So that's what that innovation hub will be sustainable. Why? It's community-led, it's community governed, and the community will look for resources to sustain that project. But when we make these innovation hubs in the centers, in the urban areas, the level of sustainability becomes very minimal because we must keep on monitoring them and funding. Two, like I shared with you, the biggest cause is that the innovation hubs are not at the grassroots, where most of the population goes to sleep, goes to cook food from. So here in urban areas, the highest target of people that we are reaching out to, they are the educated people. Me and you, who can walk into an office and say, my name is Farida, I have a degree, I want to know what are you guys doing here. But in the village, it's going to be hard for someone to come from village 10 kilometers to come to a town to ask what the innovation village is doing, what the innovation hub is doing. And you think about climate change, something they have never heard about. So when we migrate from the urban areas to the local, the grassroots level, these initiatives, the strategies, and the frameworks will work. You talked about frameworks, but trust me, like I shared with you, in my village, we have a committee for environment, fully equipped with money. But when we did a scorecard, no one knew of them. They were just introducing themselves for the first time. So having innovation hubs for climate change at grassroots level is a very, very innovative and sustainable way of ensuring that climate change, environmental protection, policies and governance are sustainable.
Thank you so much, Jose. I know just before I pass it over to Frida, I'm really passionate about sustainability as well. And I'd like to understand if anything you are doing is contributing towards having policies that will be there to support the future generations in line with clean energy and alternatives for the coming generations. Is there anything that you're trying to influence as young generations towards having policies, maybe in the government or maybe at county government evolved levels, or anything evolving around having concrete structures or systems that are going to be supporting the future generation to have clean energy solutions?
Like I shared with you, that one of the best things that I'm now relying on is the community scorecard. Because with the community scorecard, you're able to bring out all these issues, of course, with evidence. So the community scorecard is a research tool. You're able to know who is affected, the gravity of this problem, how would they want to be helped. So you invite in leaders, and most of these scorecards are done by young people. But also too, I use my social media. Social media has also helped me very much. But of course, like I shared with you, social media only helps me to reach out to the leaders. Only the leaders, but issues regarding the vulnerable communities and the marginalized communities, the community scorecard is able to help. Because remember, it's in the local language. So someone is able to really understand. And when someone understands something centric, they want to get involved in it. If you don't know the importance of education, there's no need for you to go to primary one up to university. But because you know education is important for you in the future, you keep in school. That's what these communities need also, to be taught in the language they best understand, for them to appreciate. So when people appreciate, they get involved.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Cedric. Yeah, your story is very, very inspiring, and what you're emphasizing is making sure that the community are really, really involved and feel responsible for their future, which is very, very important. And what also you've mentioned about bringing sustainability and bringing these innovations within grassroots level rather than being like in the higher level, so that the vulnerable communities are really involved and part of creating these solutions and also being part of the solutions. And maybe just a food for thought, if you've thought about something or the sort, is on some of the innovative technologies or approaches that you believe can shape the future of clean energy. Are there any innovative technologies that you're currently thinking of, or approaches that you believe that can really shape the future of clean energy, either in Uganda or in Africa?
Yeah, thank you very much, Frida. So you see that the briquettes, we are doing them at a small level. In my country, I tried to do some research to find out a company that is doing briquettes. Do you know people take Coca-Cola? You know Coca-Cola, Cedric?
Yeah.
Why do you think you know Coca-Cola?
The brand, right?
Yeah, I think it's I've known it since I was young. Okay, that's a good question. Honestly, I think it's the brand.
Brand of bonds. Yeah.
Me, I grew up knowing MTN. You know why?
Network.
In my school, MTN came and branded our school, MTN. So growing up, I knew MTN. So why am I saying this? Our young generation needs to know about climate change right from nursery. So any strategy in school would really help these children start from the right one, number one. Their first day of walking into school, they see climate change. It's going to help the future generations be responsible. That is one. So what am I saying? I'm saying in school, climate change education. To me, it would even be very, very crucial to make it a subject in school. Why am I saying this? These courses now at university, why are they not in primary? Why are they not in secondary? Why do I have to find environmental protection at university? Why not start with it from primary? That is one. So that if the whole country, if the whole world would start funding climate change education for in-school learners, it would really shape the future. Like you say at Cedric and Frida, you see all of us know Coca-Cola is someone saying, I knew it from childhood. And you grow with that passion of Coca-Cola just from childhood. And you become responsible. If someone is drinking another drink, you say, why not Coca-Cola? But there are many other drinks today that you don't know, Frida. There are other companies like MTN, but we all know MTN everywhere you go. So that is raising this from level 1 in school is very, very important. Then number 2, so these briquettes, they are very good. But the raw materials that we are using, they are still agricultural raw materials. So if we are still talking about high dependence on agriculture, we are still using agricultural waste for briquettes, it means the future is not sustainable still. So there is more need for innovations into raw materials that are able to do raw materials, but of course sustainable and clean, that can do the same for cooking. But also 3, on the high level, is reducing the cost of the hydro power. And I've always advocated for rural electrification. We no longer need to see our children putting on these small lamps that produce smoke. It's not sustainable, and the population is increasing. So rural electrification and subsidizing these prices is also very, very important. Yeah, but one that I still end with is prioritizing climate change education and funding from primary level.
Thank you so much, Osaya. Over to you, Cedric.
Yeah. I'm really taken away, but there's words, and I can feel like I'm just straight into the project. So yeah, that's really good. What you're doing is really impactful, and I must say that it's contributing a lot in the sustainability world. And we are, our listeners are all excited, and they're really learning a lot from what you're sharing with us. I'll come back into sustainability, and one of the biggest things that is a multi-sectorial engagement. Like, it's bigger than individuals, and I like the fact that you're contributing. You're bringing the community aspect. You're bringing the community. You're bringing other stakeholders in place, and you're trying to also engage the leaders into having these systems in place. So I know you spoke a bit around VSO, and I think that could be one of the motivating factors. I know a lot of our listeners probably don't know what VSO is, but I just like to give a glimpse of what that is. VSO works with over 5,000 young people globally, and they have youth networks which are established by and led by young people in 17 countries in Asia, Africa, and Europe. And the members include ICS volunteers. These are ICS International Security Service and volunteers, as well as national volunteers, community volunteers, and marginalized young people that VSO works with through its programming areas. And the network works closely with VSO programming teams to design and lead on key projects for VSO. So we always say that young people are a catalyst for change. They have the passion and creativity to bring about innovative solutions to global emergencies such as climate change, and this determines their future. So all this is projected to what Jose has been telling us, and VSO awarded VSO Uganda a grant which was around £2,500 under the Youth-led Climate Innovation Grant. with the objective of raising awareness among young women and youth on clean energy alternatives, charcoal and firewood in the slum areas of Uganda. So the grant supported youth-led innovation in climate resilient agriculture, waste management, and clean energy. A lot of what Hosea has been telling us revolves around this, and I'm really proud to be part of this conversation, Hosea. That's really inspiring. And towards sustainability, I would say that one of the biggest contributing factors is always partnership, engaging with different stakeholders, and of course, using the big outcome that comes when we partner and when we bring resources together. So, Hosea, I'm really passionate and I'm really glad that you're following this good step. You're expanding your scope, and just encourage that you continue doing that. Just a quick one before we come to the end of it, Hosea. This is a question that I have for you. What gives you hope in young people's role in climate action?
I was sharing with you our recent population statistics. 57% of the population in Uganda is below 17 years. This is very hopeful because, like I shared with you, if this population gets to know about climate change and they embrace it, the future is bright. The future is very, very bright. That's what gives me hope, these young people. Because that means 10 years from today, this population will be 27 years and they'll be responsible citizens for climate change. This gives me hope. So the demographic factor is one thing that gives me energy. And also, too, there is evidence that most of us, even especially those who are educated, they are really seeing what is happening. The rate at which floods are displacing people, the rate at which prices for foods are fluctuating day in, day out, the rate at which here in Uganda, the northern region, people died of hunger. People have no food. And everyone was seeing that. So that the evidence that we can now all see surely gives me hope that the young people are going to embrace this. It's no longer a small issue. The gravity of it now can be evidenced by everyone. And like I shared with you, that what gives me the more than 95%, that the demographic factor. That's why I really feel we need to go to schools and tell these children from primary one that climate change means this. If you do this, you're changing your future in 10 years to come. So that they all grow up when they embrace it. This is the only advantage that we have by now. It's the biggest advantage that we have, and we need to utilize it. If we don't utilize it, the future is in danger.
Wow, indeed, Hosea. There's a high significant relationship between young people and sustainability. So I think I agree with you on that. And the way you say the future is bright, young people have the capacity. If only we build good structures for them, then we will create systems that meet the present need without compromising the needs of the future generation. So I strongly support that, and I strongly agree with you that we need to invest in the young people because they have a high correlation between the future systems being sustainable. Thank you so much for sharing such insightful information with us. And I hope our listeners have really been encouraged. And I'll pass it over to Frida.
Thank you so much, Hosea, for that. There's so much has always been said that Africa has this potential with its young people. There is this youth bulge in Africa that is very promising. And one thing that is more inspiring today and more surprising is the statistics in Uganda that over around 57% of young people are under the age of 17. That is very, very outstanding and very, very inspiring. And really gives us hope for the future. If only young people could take up spaces, could lead some of these innovations, and could be responsible for their future, then I do believe that we have a very vibrant future in Africa, in Uganda, and in the world with young
Yeah.
people at the forefront. And we always say that it's not for young people without them. So we do believe that even the spaces that currently young people are not in, young people should be involved and included to take the spaces and lead these innovation hubs. And I think one of the most important things that I loved also from your stories and from what you've shared is the intersectionality of all these, that in as much as we are tackling climate action, we are tackling, like, we are ensuring we are promoting clean energy within our communities, all these cannot work in isolation. They influence the sexual reproductive health rights, they influence education in one way, they influence decent work, our livelihoods. So by just tackling climate action and promoting clean energy, we are also promoting decent work. The way you mentioned that while training women and girls, you are able to create employment for some of them. We are also ensuring that they're more knowledgeable in climate action, and also if it influences some aspects of their life like sexual reproductive health rights. So that is really outstanding, bringing the intersectionality of all the challenges that we are facing. That when you're tackling climate action or promoting clean energy, it's not only that, but it also influences positively some aspects of our life. So it was really, really great hearing from you, Osea, your innovation. It's really great that you're working with and for young people, and also ensuring that young women and girls are not left behind in your innovations within the community. So thank you so much for your time and for your valuable insights. It's been a real pleasure having you on our podcast. And not forgetting to thank all our listeners for tuning in, for listening to us, for listening to our discussions. And we do believe that you're going to take action, spread this word so that we make the world a better place and we promote sustainability in everything that we do. And just to remind you, not to forget to share this episode and follow us on all our social media for more on sustainability and innovative strategies in the green sector. Until next time, stay green.
Stay green.